Good evening. It is May 17th, 2023. This is Legit Paranormal News brought to you by legitpodcast.com. I am King Michael.
I am Dreamy David Barr.
Now, David, before we do the top story, let's do some not so real news, but it's very
Sounds good.
important to me. Here we go. When asked, what is your spouse's biggest issue with you? Men were polled, Dave. Turned out over a whopping 80% said it would be not listening to her.
What?
As far as the women polled, it was just a bunch of yammering. Next, Dave. Former President Trump had a town hall on CNN. When asked about his methods, I don't know if you know this. I did a little quick interview with them. I don't know if did I tell you. I mean, I probably didn't tell you.
No, I didn't get the memo.
My bad. I'll tell next time. I'll tell you. We're good with that. Next
Sure.
time. All right. Next time.
Yeah, I'll let it slide this time.
Yeah, next time.
All right.
When asked about his methods on running for office, former President Trump said, "Well, what do you want me to say? I'll say it out loud." That's to me pretty amazing.
I can believe that.
I have a quick question before I finish the news, and that is the word patriots. I feel like he's trying to trademark the word. I got a weird feeling that maybe he won't run as a Republican. He might run as a patriot. And then I had this to ponder. How many years will it be before the word patriot becomes associated with something so bad that the local New England Patriots have to change their team name? Now, I got to finish the story. Current President Biden was asked the same question, Dave, and he responded with, and then left.
I can believe that too.
Yes, current Vice President Harris could have been contacted as well.
Who?
That's all I have for the.
I don't think I've seen the vice president at all since she's been in office.
Oh no, she's there. Oh, she's there, and you know what? You could find her. She's actually. You know what's funny is here's the thing that kills me the most. She's one of those hide in plain sight people. She's somewhere. No one's really looking for her. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Sometimes I feel like no one wants to find somebody, and then they complain about the fact that they can't find them. It's kind of like it's weird. No one wants to find her. Let it be. Look, you know what it is? It's becoming too routine that she's going to speak, and someone's going to find a clip of it that's going to be like, yeah, I don't know what she was saying either. Because she has the propensity, you like that word? We're doing the news?
Yeah.
So I do impersonations, not going to do them now, of all the different people. But when I try to do her, the main goal is to take a topic, right? Reconstruct the question you were just asked and like almost like juxtapose the words, like read it back almost. Then break down like one word at a time and take it too far. You know what I'm trying to say? Like she just like when she answers a question, it's like she's solving a riddle. I swear she thinks that's what it is, and it's like, no, dude, just answer back. But she takes you on a magical ride sometimes.
Yeah, it's like a roller coaster.
I mean, God bless. I'm not saying bad. I'm not trying to say. I guess that's kind of bad. I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing. It's just that's how the person is. Like she's one of those people that can talk around the bush. You know what I mean? Just
yeah.
It's like, but you know what? On most politicians, like they're good at it. She's just good at taking out like the nouns and then saying the paragraph, and you're just left going, "What are we even? What are we talking about now? What? Like what? Wait, what? Like you know what? When someone makes you question, are you stupid? And you have to, and you have that sad moment of, wait, maybe I'm really stupid. Then you realize, no. I don't know what they just said because they didn't say anything. And that happens a lot in sports too. Let's be honest. Guy comes off the field, they're like, how'd you feel about the game? And the guy's like, well, thank you. And like, not at all answering the question.
Here's what I like about sports, like it's football, right? Mm-hmm. They ask him a question, and like, I don't know, man, because this is football. and like that's their answer for everything.
Yeah. Yes.
They're all like hyped up.
Yes.
Because this is football.
Yes. And you know what though? You know what's messed up is it's not just the people that played it, right? It's become the fans, the old school fans, which is including myself, right? Here's the issue with that. So football is a game of tradition, just like baseball, and,
Right.
and one of those games that you don't want to lose. It's almost like the NBA should have paid attention to that and not let everybody just shoot threes. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, they should have paid attention to the guys going to the rim and stuff like that, all the passing and that stuff, the game.
Yeah. My wife's been watching all the playoffs. I've been watching some of the games with her, and it's like everybody's shooting for threes. It's kind of taken away a lot of the excitement for the game. It's like, oh, let's pass it around the perimeter, shoot for three, miss. All right, get it, pass it around the perimeter, shoot for three. It's taken a lot away from the game.
That's because, all right, so you just did what the curmudgeons do when it comes to football, because let me just, what you just said, because you're right. And here's the thing. So people growing up now watching basketball now, the 3-point's not special. Nothing special about the 3-point shot for people now that play basketball. It's just like that. You have to have that in your arsenal. In other words, Larry Bird only used it to win games.
Right.
Like, not only, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like he was the kind of guy that, like, because, dude, you get me off on a tangent. I'm just gonna cut time on people. But they've been talking about Bird. The whole Bird thing's been driving me nuts. Like, I'm a Laker fan. Grew up a Laker fan. I don't know how, but I grew up a Laker fan. I was a fan of James Worthy, really big. That was my man. Like, I bought his sneakers, and I was in 8th grade. They were New Balance. I didn't care. They were James Worthy's, right? But I grew up a Laker fan. But I watched Larry Bird kill us, and just because I'm local, I get to watch all the games. I would just hate him, right? Who I've come to love him now. But I mean, like, back then I had to hate him. I was a Laker fan. But I would watch the games. He still make me watch. I hated him so much that I loved him. Like, I love watching him play. He played the game, right? Here's what they don't get. Like, he played within the confines of how the game was played back then, right? Where you could get checked. It was so much different. Like, it was so much more like
he didn't take a dive or pretend to like stub his toe and go off the court on a wheelchair.
You know what's funny is he would dive. Literally. You know what I mean? Not figuratively, like you were saying, like they take a dive or metaphorically, whatever. Let's pick words later. Let's argue about words later. All right. What I'm trying to say is, like, you know what I mean? Like yeah, that's messed up. But yeah, all right. You want to get on with your stuff? I'm sorry.
Yeah, before I do that though, I got to take something up with HR.
Why? What's up?
I've been here all week.
I've been
here all week. I've been the one turning the lights on. I shut them off. I lock up when I leave. Like,
Dave.
I didn't get the memo that we were working remotely. What the hell?
Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, it's Wednesday. It's the night of the show.
Right.
Why didn't you call yesterday?
I just expected everyone to be here. I didn't get the memo.
But by
I'm going to give HR a piece of my mind.
You know what? I know you're not joking, and that's what scares me. So I'm wondering, it's day 3. Day 3, you did. Dave, by day 2, wasn't it weird that nobody else was in the building for 2 straight days?
I was extremely focused on my story and getting everything right.
All right.
Tunnel vision, Mike. I was just focused.
I'm out of words. You know, I don't have no words right now for this. I don't know what to tell you, my man. But
if I could go back in time, I would go give myself a heads up. Which is why my story is on time travel this week. Right? Do you believe
don't come in tomorrow before we start.
Right.
Don't come in tomorrow. All right.
I'm not coming in until next Wednesday.
Okay, good.
This is BS.
All right.
So, Mike, you and I have talked. We've seen pictures that are pretty old and people looking out of time. They're holding like cell phones, or they're wearing some clothes that are out of place. So, and when these pictures were taken, there was no Photoshop back then. So if someone wanted to fake these things, it was pretty hard, right?
Yeah, there's some that are like the hippie with the cell phone or whatever it was. There's
like a surfer. Like,
what about when the guy comes down in the parachute You ever see that video or the Holyfield fight against whatchamacallit? They caught a flip phone. They found a flip phone, what looks like a camera phone, and then
Yeah,
I'm sorry, in that one, that guy had some sort of cell phone that didn't exist.
right. It's
All right.
always like a flip phone too.
Yeah,
There's
yeah, yeah,
several
yeah.
pictures like that.
No.
And the flip phone's making a comeback, so who knows?
Hey, look, let me tell you something. Man,
Were you the Moto Razor guy?
no.
No.
But let me tell you why I know why people love flip phones. Like I used to work in a cell phone place. I own a cell phone place. Like I've run the gamut with the cell phone stuff, and I know about guys when it comes to they miss the Nextels. They still working guys still if Nextel came out tomorrow and they came back with the old phones you have to talk into really loud and be obnoxiously loud with,
Yeah.
working guys tomorrow would go and buy those sons of bitches because they missed those phones. They were durable. They didn't care. They were loud. They need
Oh
them
yeah.
loud. Some guys can't hear.
Some of those
Oh.
things were built military grade. Like you could bury them in sand, toss them into the ocean, they'd still work.
But here's what's great about the flip phone. When you're done with the conversation, it's much better than trying to make sure you hit the red
Oh yeah.
thing. You just go done.
Or if you were pissed off at someone, you like slammed it
But
together.
yeah, but either way, the conversation is done.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that right there is worth having a flip phone. I don't need it all this. I want to close that shit. I want to be like done. That's how a phone ends.
Yeah.
There needs to be. It can't be this. I can't be trying to make sure I hit the red button because I don't hit it all the time. It's not there. It's not.
And there were no butt
really
dials.
there.
There were no butt dials when we had flip phones.
What's that?
There were no butt dials when we had flip phones.
No, none of that ever
Yeah.
happened. None of
Yeah.
that ever happened. Because
Anyway, let me get on track because I know Gene's like chomping at the bit back there to get on here.
No, you're good. You're on schedule. It's only
All right.
50 minutes past.
So we have an astrophysicist who claims to be close to building a time machine. His name is Professor Ron Mallett, and he believes he's found the equation to make time travel possible, even though it's highly unlikely to happen during his lifetime. So he thinks he's put all these pieces together, and he had this revelation while he was hospitalized. So he's a physicist, and he's dedicated most of his adult life to proving that time travel is possible. And he says he thinks we can build a real and functioning time machine at some point. He realizes that his designs and theories, they're probably not going to make time travel possible during his lifetime. He's 74 now, but he's been working on this for years and years. But he hid it from most of his colleagues because he wanted to be a respectable academic and have a career where people didn't think he was a crackpot.
Is he no longer alive?
He's 74 years old. He's still alive.
Oh, it sounded like you were trying to raise funds.
He is. I think I saw something about Spike Lee possibly doing a movie and then donating the proceeds from the movie to help this guy out. He must be a pretty likable guy. He thinks that he has
or a Knicks fan. Sorry.
Yep, potentially. He thinks we have all the tools to bend the space-time continuum with the help of a rotating ring of lasers that form a loop in time. So what motivated him to do all this? It was the death of his father. And he read H.G. Wells' novel, The Time Machine, and that was another inspiration. Got him to do all this research. So his dad dies of a heart attack in 1955 at the age of 33. Oof. Professor Mallett was only 10 years old, and this event changed his life's course completely.
So the kid was 10, and I'm sorry, I'm stepping in.
Yeah, the kid was 10.
Dad was 33?
33. Died of a heart attack.
You don't even get to know him.
Yeah. So this made him want to build a time machine. He wants to go back in time to see his dad. That's what motivated all of his research. So his father was a TV technician, and he made his son read books and encouraged him to be passionate about science. And about a year after his dad's death, Professor Mallett was grieving, and he comes across an illustrated version of the classic science fiction novel, The Time Machine, and he was just completely consumed by it. And the story gave him an idea that it's become his passion for 60 years now. And he's decided he would like to build a time machine so he could go back and potentially save his father's life. I don't know about that though, because the whole butterfly effect thing, and he could create his own flashpoint and screw up the whole timeline. And
wait a minute. He's building a time machine,
right?
But you're not so sure about going back in time.
He wants to go back in time to save his father's life.
Dude, if you give people the ability to go back in time, this is why we don't know how to go back in time, and we should probably never know. You know how many people would go back in time and switch stuff?
Oh yeah, it would be a disaster.
I made a joke that this is actually funny I'm saying it like this, but I made a joke that like if people were allowed to go back in time, right? Your life would be like you'd be seeing people like you know what I mean? Like it'd be different, something different, because it's bullshit. You can't have that happen. You can't give people the ability to go back. They'll change stuff, and you're right. There'll be butterfly effects up the wazoo. That's what we say in television terms, I believe.
Here's what I'm curious about, though. So, say he achieves this, does he remember his old life, or because he's kind of a paradox now, or do all of his memories get changed because he saved his dad?
So you know what's weird with me? Here's what I think the problem is with time travel. Hold on. Time travel makes my brain hurt. I hope it's not possible. So here's the thing with time travel, right? It's weird. It's like, do you think any time travelers are at peace with themselves?
I don't know.
Because here's my thing. If you were at peace with yourself, would you want to go to a different time? Would you see the need to ever go to a different time?
I think I would do it out of curiosity. Like, I would want to see how the pyramids were built and
So
things
then,
like that.
What if they had a thing where you can kind of view it, kind of like that Al, whatever that movie was back? It was an older movie. It had that actor in it that I loved when he was ever a late night guest. Forget his name. Where he went, his life ended, and he had to go see God, and then watch film of his life. And then you ever see the movie? And the woman he was with was like perfect. And then they go to a place where they get to see their reincarnated selves, and everything
No, I don't
he
think I
is
saw
like
this one.
everything he is like a. It's Al Franks. Does that make sense? Al. God damn it! I'll figure that out, but I'll get back. It's a great movie. Him and a woman. Go ahead.
So Professor Mallett keeps this plan a secret because if he lets the cat out of the bag, he figures no one's going to take him seriously as a scientist. But this motivated him to go and learn physics. And he said that time machine book changed his life. And it was the first paragraph. And he even to this day at 74, he still remembers the quote: "Scientific people know very well that time is only a kind of space. And why cannot we move in time as we move about in the other dimensions of space?" So that quote really got his brain going, seeing time as, a space, just like, the space between me and my camera that I'm broadcasting with.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump in really quick. So I always go over this, and I can't find have you ever found information on something and you found information on it, and then you can't find it months later, and you can't even kind of find it to show somebody what you saw?
Yeah.
It's no longer even there. That's been happening a lot. I hate to say that, but it has happened. But I'm sorry.
Maybe it's the Mandela effect.
Yeah, maybe it is. I'm sorry. I also forgot what I was saying. What was I saying?
I don't know. You were looking for something and you knew what you were looking for, but you couldn't find it. But it was out there at some point, and you still can't.
Oh, I know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
About the movie?
No. Yeah, no, I knew. But thank you. There was All right. They keep track of time with a linear line, right?
Yeah.
It's a wave. There's a wave catching it. So there was a supposed blip in the line at some point, right? Now, just a blip, right? And they drew it and made it bigger so that you could see it. And it was just like a line, and then if there was like a circle and then a line, right? That meant that time was going through those different, like, I guess, excursion points, we'll call them.
Yeah.
We can argue
Like,
about words later. Yeah.
it was rewriting itself. Like
Yeah.
that moment hadn't cemented, something happened.
Like if there was, but like, no, in other words, if there was a blip and you still wanted to just say that time was linear, going left to right, which is funny as hell if you think about it.
Yeah.
Everything's left to right. Time is left to right. Everything goes left to right. Like, you know what I mean? But anyways, the blip means that, like, there could be timelines going straight through that entire blip. Straight through, right? They're saying straight through. If there was a blip at all, it could be, and they drew all the lines. And it's like, and then there's people that say that, like, well, why couldn't time go north south? You know what I mean? Just for the shits and giggles. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
why
some people say it goes front to back too.
Yeah, that's the one that would suck. Although, no, it would be fun for a while, I guess, at the end. But who would want to be like, no, I would rather. I think it's better to get older, wiser, and just walk outside one day and try to get someone to throw dirt on you. Makes most sense.
Yeah.
So, time travel, I don't think it should be done. I think they should allow you to see back in time, or see maybe I don't know. And you shouldn't be. See, that's the other thing. You shouldn't know your future. I guess I'm against time travel. I didn't really ever think of it that way. I just think, like,
there's too many things that could go wrong.
That's one of those. You know what stinks is that you realize that you're at a point in life where you have to make decisions based on the fact that there's other people. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I know if I go, no, it should be something we can all do. There's gonna be people that are gonna screw shit up so badly. So I'm one of those people, like, I would rather be like, you know what? No one does it. Same thing with the DNA changing that's been going on and all that other junk, like all that stuff. I would have said no, like a long time ago. Just say no to that stuff. Look, let's not create people. All right.
Right.
Let's not do this, like, because these are things that we shouldn't even be doing. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Like, they don't need us. It's one of those things where they're like, yeah, they don't need you.
Did you ever see the show Timeless? It was on NBC a few years back.
No.
It was awesome. Like,
Heard about it though.
If anybody who's watching this is into time travel and you haven't seen Timeless, do it. Because it's about this company. They develop time machines, and one gets acquired by, like, an evil company that wants to rewrite history in its favor. And it's like, and they go back and they change significant points in history. It's pretty messed up and cool.
Yeah, so what I was told was that it's all happening all the time, basically. Like,
Yeah, there are
that's
cultures
the way.
that believe that time happens all at once, and our brains are just trying to make sense of it. They call it the all at one time.
Yeah, but like someone was trying to explain to me, it's like it because we all need it to go left to right. We need start, we need finish. That's why we all hate movies that end on a note where you're like, well, what's the ending?
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. What are you trying to say? Don't be artistic. I paid to see this. How does it end? If I gotta walk out of the theater going, how did it end? Like, what
Our
was the
brains
ending?
don't like open loops. We
I'm
need
not.
closure. That we're wired for that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's that. Anything else?
Yeah, back to Professor Mallet. It turns out that black holes create this gravitational field that could lead to the creation of time loops that could allow us to go back in time. So he's saying these things spin around, and it's part of Einstein's theory as well, that space and time are related to each other. And that's why some scientists refer to it as space-time. So when the black hole spins, it spins with such a force that it actually causes time around it to shift. They create this massive gravitational field. And Professor Mallet thinks that we could simulate this effect and create time loops that would allow us to go back in time. So his theory says that we should create an intense and continuous rotating beam of light that can create gravity. But you need the energy to create it to be as powerful as a black hole.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, so that's why he doesn't think we'll see this in his lifetime. He said he figured out how to do this. In theory, it's possible. But again, this guy's 74. Interestingly enough, he's not far from us. He teaches at the University of Connecticut. And he's spent his career researching Albert Einstein's theories behind black holes and general relativity. And his main focus, again, has been building that time machine. He's got a prototype, with the laser spinning around to show how it would be done.
See, here's the thing, right? The fact that this guy is legitimately, doing this and all this stuff, it makes me want to drive there and go, hey, all right, put it away. Put it away.
Yeah.
No, shut it down.
Shut
everything down. Shred it.
Be like our former governor and go over there and go, knock it off.
Yep. Just shut it down.
So he thinks he can rotate a laser and create this powerful ring to bend space-time. And he thinks that's what would allow us to go back in time. Here's the interesting thing though. His theory has a couple catches. You can't go forward in time. According to his theory, you can only go back. And the only other catch is that you can only go back to the point where when the time machine was created. So even though he spent all his life's studies trying to create this thing, it still wouldn't get him to his dad because the time machine was created too late. So if someone does create this thing, according to Professor Mallet, you can only go back in time to the point where the machine was created. That's as far back as you can go.
So, are you close to being done? I don't want
That's it. No, that's it.
So, really quickly, the future does not exist. All right, you can go back in time, yeah, because you spent the time, you lived the time. That's time. There's no such thing as tomorrow. There really is not. And there's a catchphrase that was used around the neighborhood that was "Tomorrow's a sucker," and that's the truth. Because it's like you don't know you got tomorrow, and
right.
Who knows about the future? Like literally, like when someone tells you about your future, that's weirder to me than someone telling you about your past. Most people will focus on kind of your past, and they'll talk to you about like people that are around you from your past, but they don't usually tell you like when they start telling you stuff like you're gonna be a plumber. That's when it gets a little weird for me because it's like, no, I'm being serious, because like, you never know. Like you take one step the other way.
Exactly.
I don't want to do a Pacino game of inches speech, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like, how do you predict? It doesn't exist. There's no such thing of it. All right. But speaking of the present and the now, joining us to hopefully take as much time of the whole last half hour she wants, Jet Fuel, Gene, Broida. Gene, how are you tonight?
Hey, Gene.
Howdy, everybody. It's great to be back reporting the legit paranormal news with you guys.
Yeah, Gene, we had I saw you at the memo. It was a stay home week. Dave's actually been at the studio now for 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and today. Look at him. He didn't get the memo.
That's what happens when you miss the memo. What can I say?
Doesn't pay attention. What do you got for us?
catching an earful tomorrow.
But you get tomorrow off, is what I heard.
Yeah,
you better go home.
So I won't be here till next Wednesday.
Well played. And Audra's here. Hey, Audra. Good to see you.
Yeah, she's right there.
Yeah.
Time travel makes her brain hurt.
We're all Twitter-pated. As for time travel, you know that sooner or later it'll be invented. Probably later, if it hasn't been already. And we would never know about it because any tweak to time How would we know?
So, Gene, you'll find this
So
interesting.
Mandela effect aside, notwithstanding, irrelevant really. You wouldn't even know. You would not even be aware. And I read an interesting thought the other day, just recently, Mandela effect, or going back to change the classic notion. You go back in time and you either, well, you end up killing a grandparent. Okay, so the idea being if you kill a grandparent, you won't be born. This notion wouldn't matter if you killed your grandparent, other circumstances would intervene and you would be born. It wouldn't affect the timeline. I'm not sure I can believe that, but it just seems to, I mean, it's just hard to compute. That sort of thing is hard to compute. But time travel, could it happen? I think so. I do believe time may be more or less like a Mobius strip that bends and twirls around itself, and that gravity wells. We know that gravity will make wells in a plane of gravity can be distorted. All this stuff.
See, that's a
piece of paper that gets folded. You put the pencil through, and all of a sudden you can walk across the pencil to the other side of the universe.
All right. So what you're saying makes sense. I've heard of that too. But here's my thing: make a time machine. To me, just sounds silly as a sentence. Because think about it. If you could make a time machine,
I don't have time to make a time machine. Okay, I'm busy. I'm a busy person. I don't have time.
It would mean that you made a time machine and could have came back and helped that guy speed it up. Like, in other words, like, how do you make a time machine? Like, all of a sudden, now you finally made it.
You watch that series of fine movies. That's what you do. Back to the Future. You know, wasn't it all addressed in Back to the Future? What else can you really say?
Really was pretty good. You're right. That was
really. I mean, it was archetypal.
I know a paranormal investigator who doesn't believe in aliens, but he said according to things that he'd seen, time travel was possible. So I don't know.
I think almost everything is possible. I have a pretty darned open mind because I was raised amongst super skeptics, super scientists, empiricists, they're called. They are anti-mystics, and I'm an integration of both. I do science, but I do mysticism too. And I know the paranormal is out there. I have empirical evidence and I have subjective evidence. There's lots of evidence. As Bob Dylan said, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. Okay. Some signs are so self-evident that, for example, prayer. If you don't believe in prayer, it probably wouldn't work for you. But if you do believe in prayer and you do prayer, it probably works for you. Well, I'm just saying that a lot of what we experience, well, everything we experience is experiential by its nature. Duh, we're self-defining. But when we get down to paranormal, almost everything is experiential. However, it's interesting when you can blend experiential with empiricism. And that's a nice segue into my topic tonight.
A segue.
Hey, so spool up this image while I introduce our topic. Okay. I love this topic. Talking again tonight about one of the most famous UFO cases in the world that you probably never heard of, Rendlesham Forest in the United Kingdom. This is a base, a Royal Air Force base that was occupied by U.S. forces for some time. And while that was going on, in the year 1980, multiple sightings over several nights in December 1980 near Bentwaters Royal Air Force Base ultimately resulted in tons of expert testimony. Are we seeing the picture of the thing?
Yeah, it looks like Darth Vader.
Okay, so this is what they saw. And who are they? Let me not get ahead of myself here. One of the main witnesses here is a retired now Air Force Colonel Charles Halt, H-A-L-T. Not only has he provided lots of evidence, including tape recordings on the scene during this landing. This thing landed in the forest at night. They saw lights in it. Let me back up. I get so excited talking about this. Military base. The airmen watching the skies for whatever see lights, and they go, dudes, lights in the skies. Okay, guys on the ground are like, Okay, lights in the sky. Let's go check it out. So they go check it out. And there's a group of them. They go check it out. And this is what they see. They see these lights darting about. And then one of them settles into the forest and they walk up to it. There's lots of ambient light now. This thing is bathing the area in light. They walk up to it. They see this thing. They described it as looking kind of like an acorn that had landed. And it looked like this with hieroglyphic type symbols around the base. And a couple of them went right up to this thing and touched it, which was a bad idea because one of those people was Colonel Halt. And years later, 25 years later, in fact, he was awarded the first ever military, veterans, it was a Veterans Administration got him an award for radiation sickness and poisoning caused by this craft. The military admitted that Colonel Halt's heart condition was caused by too up close exposure to this particular craft on this particular occasion. And 25 years later, he won $1 million payout or something like that. He enlisted the aid of one of the U.S. Senators. And this was a big deal. So what's hallmark about this case? Several things. One thing, many witnesses, many. There is confirmation by radar above ground. Well, what am I trying to say? There were guys on observation towers whose jobs it is to scan the skies, those kinds of guys. And then the ground guys on the ground, they're out there with recording instruments and magnometers. They're looking for rate. They got Geiger counter. They're concerned about radiation, and the radiation levels were high. They get out there. They're credible witnesses because they're trained observers. Everybody understands in ufology that military observers are amongst the best. Okay, so here I'm going to quote just briefly from the report that Colonel Halt filed just over 2 weeks after the incident, January 13th, 1981. The title is Unexplained Lights. So here's how it starts. Early in the morning of December 27th, 1980, 2 U.S. Air Force security police patrolmen saw unusual lights outside the back gate at Royal Air Force Base Woodbridge. Thinking an aircraft might have crashed or been forced down, they called for permission to go outside the gate to investigate. The on-duty flight chief responded and allowed 3 patrolmen to proceed on foot. The individuals reported seeing a strange glowing object in the forest. The object was described as being metallic in appearance and triangular in shape, approximately 2 to 3 meters. A meter is 3 feet, approximately. So 6 to 9 feet across the base and approximately 2 meters or 6 feet high. It illuminated the entire forest with a white light. The object, and think how weird that would be. I mean, come on. The object itself had a pulsing red light on top and a bank of blue lights underneath. And it's not uncommon, by the way, for UFOs to be sighted with multicolored lights. The object was hovering or on legs. In other words, it was observed both hovering and then it landed on landing legs. As the patrolman approached the object, it maneuvered through the trees and disappeared. At this time, the animals on a nearby farm went into a frenzy. Again, not uncommon for a UFO sighting. The object was briefly sighted approximately an hour later near the back gate. Now, the next day, they went out looking in the daylight. 3 depressions, think tripod base, 1.5 inches deep and 7 inches in diameter, half a foot, were found where the object had been sighted on the ground. And the following night, December 29th, 1980, the area was checked for radiation. They got beta and gamma readings of 0.1 milliroentgens with peak readings in the 3 depressions. And near the center of the triangle formed by the depressions. A nearby tree had moderate readings on the side of the tree toward the depression. So some radiation traces. And then later in the night, a red sunlight sun-like light. A red sun-like light was seen through the trees. It moved about and pulsed. At one point, it appeared to throw off glowing particles and then broke into 5 separate white objects and disappeared, and et cetera, et cetera. So lots of stuff going on with this case. And it is, like I say, landmark, hallmark, everything mark. And yet most people in the United States would go Rendell what? Rendlesham what? And even in Great Britain, I've covered debunkers debunking this story, which is so well documented, so incontrovertible. There's just no debunking it. Any debunker is paid to debunk, is my conclusion. They wouldn't just be doing it because they truly believe this didn't happen. They would have to be paid to debunk. And who are the people who do that? Those would be intelligence agencies for the most part. But I digress. Fast forward. Well, actually, we don't need to fast forward. The point I'm trying to make is Rendlesham is weird enough, but we have literally countless cases of UFO encounters, both of of the direct face-to-face kind, but also aerial sightings. We have all kinds of sightings from around the world for hundreds of years, and most of them, of course, would be from non-military sources. So those sources are considered less credible. But 3 years before Rendlesham, in 1977, there was a farmhouse in Wales owned by a family called Ripperston, or known as the Ripperston Farmhouse. And
Doesn't sound English.
the tenants there, named of last name Coombe, say Coomb, Mrs. Pauline Coombe, eyewitness to what was a 1 year long ordeal that started, I got a picture of this too, that started when she and other people in the household noticed outside this orangey light that plunged down and seemed to fall onto this part of Wales is on the coast, so it fell on the coastal path. And these family members were concerned that an aircraft had come down. This is very common for UFO stories. The first thought is that something's flying around. It has fallen down. Let us call emergency services. But before they could even think of doing that, and I assume this farmhouse was fairly remote. They had neighbors, but this was not a dense, close neighborhood, okay? So military landed. Military arrived in short order. A mob of military people arrived and swarmed this little village, this area. They went to the coastal path and they would not let these people on their own farm. They blocked off the path. And at the same time, we had these school kids, pardon me.
She's coughing.
I'm not dead yet, but I'm coughing.
All right.
So we have these school kids.
There you go. Take a sip of water.
Who also witnessed the same thing. And here they've all drawn pictures of what they saw. And they saw.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, hold on. I'm so intrigued by the story. I'm not showing this school kid showing this picture.
I know, it's freaky deaky.
Well,
this is a very deep story, and I might explore it at depth later. But my point is that when these kinds of stories happen to ordinary people, they tend to get glossed over as, well, we can't prove it, we can't disprove it, they're not very reliable sources, blah, 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 blah. And yes, all of that may be true, but this is not the only case where groups of school children have witnessed UFOs land and occupants come out. And these kids saw an occupant, actually 2 occupants come out, dressed in silver uniforms. And this is what Mrs. Coombe at the farmhouse also reported. These kids saw the aliens and they were freaked out. They were not happy. They were not getting happy vibes at all. They were totally scared. And you could see now with kids, it's hard to know because kids can be swayed by fiction, by invention. Kids can agree to a pact and agree they're all going to swear to a story. But there have been enough investigations of school kids seeing stuff that I'm convinced that in many cases there is something to it. And I suspect this is one of those cases, if only because not only these kids, but other villagers and neighbors of the Coombs witnessed not only the lights in the sky, but weird doings in their neighborhood. And the weirdest doing is that one night the Coombs were at home inside the farmhouse and they'd seen these lights outside, but they were watching TV or doing something. They weren't paying attention. And all of a sudden, their dog inside freaks out, starts going nuts, barking, crying. If a dog could scream, it would be screaming. And it's indicating toward a window. So they look over to the window, and there's this silvery figure, a humanoid figure, in the window looking in at them, wearing a silver uniform with a helmet on it, like a spacesuit with a helmet. Think NASA. And it's so tall, this figure, the creature they figure is 7 feet tall. The top of its head is cut off in the window frame outside the house. It's looking in at them, freaking them out. They don't know what to do. These things continue to harass them and move stuff around, move their cows. That's what it was. These folks, the Coombs, were raising cows. And every day, every few days, these cows are being teleported around the vicinity, around their own farm and the neighbors' farms. They're going around rounding up their cows from other people's farms, bringing them home. And as soon as they've rounded them up and brought them home, these aliens or whatever, something, is teleporting their cows again. And this went on for a year. What do you think of that?
All
I
right,
think that would piss me off.
hold on. Somebody left a treat. I don't allow those around me. Now it's going. I got a couple of things about the story itself. All right, let's start off. First off, Brazil has, I think, that one story about the school children that's becoming like a big a Netflix show. Like there's that one landing that they're talking about.
There's a huge one in Africa.
School. There's a school landing, I think, though, in Brazil.
Also, John Mack was a child psychologist out of Harvard who began to specialize in UFO cases with kids because no one else was doing it. And because these kids were quite often very traumatized, PTSD, we would call it now. They didn't have that term back then. This would be in the 1980s at the time of all this stuff going on. And he was renowned before he got involved with UFO research. So it was hard to debunk him, although people have, although not very convincingly. But John Mack spent the rest of his career focusing on these child stories and trying to separate the wheat from the chaff, or chaff, I guess,
Here's another one there, though. All right, so England is shady people, shady country, shady history. They tell us what they want to tell us.
Well, that's our history.
Oh,
I hate to remind you, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Listen, that's why I sometimes say there is no future. In the past is literally what you remember it. It's in your head because, man, whatever with this stuff. Let me just say a couple.
I think time is a construct of physicality, of being physical. I think time is much more relevant to physical particles or collections of physical particles, which would be humans ultimately, or other bioorganisms, but not just bioorganisms, all kinds of organisms. I think if you're not in a material form, it may be hard to experience time. I
can prove time, and I can prove time travel, and I can prove how time works by one example. How does time feel like 30 seconds of being someplace great opposed to 30 seconds of being someplace you absolutely, like HR? Like, what I'm trying to say is, like, when you're in a spot where you don't want to be there at all, those 30 seconds are an eternity. And if you're not telling me that's not changing time, that's what that to me is. It's like, because like those 30 seconds I spent going like down a slide, like, whee.
Well, your perception of time is what you feel about the passage of time, but what the stopwatch is showing is what we call actual passage of time, which in itself is is the expression of the rotation of the Earth on its axis and its revolution around the sun the 24-hour rotation is reflected in our 360-degree circle construct of Western geometry, at least, right?
Yep.
And what we think of as time is not really time,
No, I agree.
paradoxically.
No, I agree.
Which is why time has this experiential component. This is where you get into states of consciousness. Very interesting study, especially in metaphysics.
I think
And a
that's
lot of
more
people kind of back into metaphysics by wanting to explore states of consciousness to open the mind experientially.
two other things quickly. One, at one point, I think you made a new measurement term. I'm not exactly sure, but I think if we went back and looked, Dave might agree with me on that. I think we heard a measurement that I've never heard before, and we just rolled with it.
I
really
don't know that she made it up. I just think it was one of those super scientific things. It's probably really hard to pronounce, right, Gene?
Which one?
I don't know. That's the thing. There was just one that popped up. I
It
wrote
wasn't. It wasn't the gigawatt. I can tell you that.
And then lastly, my only issue with hieroglyphics is that it's like paranormal. Like you say paranormal, but yeah, paranormal is too big of an umbrella. It covers too many different things, right? It's just tough, like from one end to the other. And the whole thing about hieroglyphics is, well, why can't it just be a new symbol or it's a new language? Or maybe they're new symbols we've never seen before. Like why
the
does
thinking was
why do they
that
throw no, but why does the
Yeah.
term hieroglyphics get thrown on everything that's like unexplained
hieroglyphics is the
drawing?
term that a lot of UFO observers use to describe writing or glyphs they
Thank you.
see on the craft.
There it is.
They don't know how else to describe it. It's not that these are Egyptian hieroglyphics, although some scholars have done comparisons where witnesses under hypnosis will have regurgitated what they saw onto either drawing or text. And in some cases, witnesses continue to have night after night repeating dreams where they are being downloaded this information. This is a new term that cropped up 7-8 years ago, that these forces are downloading the information night after night until they write it down and pass it on to somebody else as if to preserve it. So
that was I had to ask that as a founding member, chairman of the DUM. That's spelled with 2 M's, not a B. Because when you explain stuff like this, we just explained. Like if you go back over what we just talked about, and you just popped on, you knew nothing what we were talking about, you'd be a little bit lost. So when it comes down to stuff like that, I want like more specifics like that. That's an example of how that stuff works. So all right, but so the term hieroglyph,
in other words, if
people know.
If you were a hieroglyphic scholar, hieroglyphics would not be mysterious to you. And they wouldn't be metaphysical necessarily, right? But if you were a lay person, the average person, especially a person who didn't know anything particularly about Egypt, had never even heard of hieroglyphics, because I'm sure there's many of those in the world. We take that knowledge for granted, but we can't across everybody. If you'd never seen a hieroglyphic, if you didn't know Egypt had hieroglyphics, seems hard to believe, but there have to be people who don't know that, and you saw such a thing, you'd be at a loss to explain it. Or to describe it. Most people say they can't remember exactly what they saw, but it reminded them of hieroglyphics. That's the best they can do. So what are they talking about? They're talking about abstract symbols of probably lines and curves. Some of them might be more or less pictorial.
We have modern day hieroglyphics. It's called graffiti. That is the same.
What about emojis?
Thing. Well, those don't count.
Why not?
They are considered hieroglyphics because
I think an emoji is a perfect.
It's a picture that represents a word or a concept or a group of words.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm not disagreeing about graffiti. I think they're all forms of hieroglyphics.
You know what I know,
and Orwell had predicted that language would be condensed. There'd be this new speak where new vocabulary, abbreviations of things, and at the time I first read 1984, which was well before 1984, I can assure you, at the time, the slogan of the book was, "How old will you be in 1984?" And it seems so far away, like 12 years ahead in time. Like, talk about time travel. This is kind of like a time travel. How old will you be in 1984? Well, I was X in 1984, and now it's how many decades later, and we're still talking about it because what we're seeing is that it's coming true. And who would have thought we'd have things like WTF? Or, I mean, we had some abbreviations in that time, ASAP, as soon as possible. It's not that the world didn't have abbreviations. It's that with the advent of text communication on iPhones and devices like that, remote devices, what we think of as a remote device, because of that, the users of those devices wanted to abbreviate even further for the sake of efficiency, simplicity, and laziness. Would you agree?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with the laziness. And whenever I think of the future and all that stuff and how it was going to be, because as a kid, I read 1984, had to do it for a class project. And it didn't come true for a long time, so I didn't think it was going to work. But the 1984 did get it right as far as like how people agreed so quickly to change language. We get so lazy that we start saying it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. We're like, we don't want to like in other words, like how many people they don't want to read the Bible because it's not in regular words.
Or like
They don't
Shakespeare. I
they don't
hated
want to do that.
Shakespeare.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like people they start reading, they go, "Oh man, what are these words?" Like I'm not saying I do. I know for a fact there's people that those words don't apply to. So that's just how we get down and down and down with words. And then there's always new words. Listen, the Jetsons got it completely wrong. Completely wrong. They're not even the Jetsons weren't good at all. And I'll tell you what,
I
David.
don't know. They predicted the Roomba.
No, that's true.
And
That's true.
video chats and
Yeah, but come on.
virtual visits with doctors.
Yeah, right. But they made virtual food. And that didn't
And
come
flying
true.
cars. I want my flying
Yeah,
car.
there's a lot.
I want my
to that
hoverboard.
thing.
Yes.
And then I made the dumb comment earlier. I gotta get off. We actually gotta wrap up. There's actually a new show that's starting up at 9:05 tonight. Exactly. And I gotta get over and help them out with it. So, what would you like to say to wrap up as we edge to the last 2 minutes of the show? Gene, you're first. Is your book?
Book, Amazon, read, great stuff. These are excellent stories that show how public opinion about UFOs has been formed over the years. And what's really interesting is now that we've had disclosure from the Pentagon, these stories are still great stories. And all of my suspicions as the subplot have come true. So there you go.
Dave?
Unknown objects.
I'm going to just touch something briefly. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'm just going to say a lot of people struggle. I've had my own struggles throughout my life. Some people who have been to some of my dream workshops know that one of the things that motivated me was my best friend's suicide. If you need help, reach out to whether it's someone you know or to a healthcare professional or to a hotline. There are people out there that care, that can help you. And no matter how hopeless things seem, you can turn your life around. So please, if you're struggling, just know there's so many other people out there struggling, and a ton of us are trying to remove the stigma of, mental health challenges. So please talk to someone, get some help.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I'll back that up. I don't mean to do rush, but I got 15 seconds to wrap it up if I keep this on time. So for Jet Fuel, Gene Broida, for Dreamy, David Barr, it is me, Mike Lepre. It was me. It doesn't matter. This was legit paranormal news brought to you by legitpodcast.com. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.